A sinister murmur swept through the corridors of power. A deadly plot was being secretly woven. The chief priests and scribes, guardians of the law and tradition, sought at all costs a way to eliminate the voice that challenged their control and exposed their hypocrisy. Time was running out. The threat of a popular uprising hung in the air, and the urgency to act before Passover was palpable. The atmosphere in Bethany, however, was one of love and devotion, an oasis of peace before the impending storm. In a simple house, an act of profound worship unfolded. A courageous woman, moved by unshakable faith, broke an alabaster jar containing a very costly perfume, pure nard, valued at a year's wages. She poured the fragrant oil on the master's head, a gesture of scarcity and incalculable value, which surprised everyone. Some present, with a more pragmatic and less spiritual view, grumbled indignantly about the waste, questioning the value of such an offering compared to the poor. It could have been sold for 300 denarii and given to the needy. Little did they know the depth of that sacred moment, that the perfume, more than a simple anointing, was for a much more solemn and prophetic preparation, preparing him for something beyond human comprehension. He, with his serene authority and piercing gaze, defended the woman and her act, revealing that the perfume was for his burial. A veiled warning, but clear to those with ears to hear. A premonition that echoed in the hearts of the most attentive, but went unnoticed by most present, sealing a destiny few could discern or accept. Wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, this story also will be told. In memory of her, news of the conspiracy was an open secret among the powerful, but the precise details were still a mystery to the people. The burning desire to arrest the man on a specific date, away from the Passover celebrations, to avoid riots and the wrath of the crowd, demonstrated the fear and urgency of his adversaries in maintaining control. The contrast between the woman's boundless devotion and the leader's calculating malice created a palpable tension, unsettling omen. He knew with unshakable certainty that his time was short, and every encounter, every word, gained colossal weight, echoing the gravity of the approaching moments. Prophecy was unfolding before his eyes, and he embraced it. This sequence of events, seemingly so disconnected, began to paint the picture of an imminent sacrifice. The immeasurable generosity against relentless greed. Unconditional love against the deepest betrayal, everything aligned for the point of no return, the climax of the story. The great drama of humanity was about to be staged, and the first acts had already been silently initiated. No one could imagine the intensity of the events, or the eternal impact that night would bring to the world. A shocking revelation about to shake all structures of faith in history. In the turmoil of Passover preparation, urgency was evident. He instructed his disciples to find a secret place, a large upper room. Furnished and ready, a safe refuge to share their last meal together, the Passover Seder, away from curious eyes and the enemy's evil intentions. Every detail was planned with divine precision, a greater purpose. The supper began with the sharing of bread and wine, ancient rituals laden with history, but with a meaning that would be transformed forever. With an authority that transcends time and human comprehension, he uttered words that would seal a new covenant, a new alliance, an eternal legacy for humanity that would echo through the centuries. An invitation to unparalleled love and sacrifice, the foundation of Christian faith. The atmosphere grew heavy with a declaration that chilled everyone present. One of you, who's eating with me, will betray me. A shock of disbelief and consternation swept the table, sparking an agonizing curiosity and a deep sadness. Each one questioned themselves, fearing to be the betrayer. The fear of imminent revelation hung like a dense shadow over the group. "Is it I?" they asked, one by one, with choked voices. The master then subtly pointed to one of them, Judas Iscariot, the one dipping bread in the same dish as him, a gesture of intimacy, revealing the conspirator's identity with a simple, painful phrase. Imagine the impact of those words, the raw, naked truth, exposing the darkness hidden within the light of friendship and communion, devastating blow to the purest and most loyal hearts. He took the bread, broke it, and said, "Take, this is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and said, "This is my blood, the blood of the covenant poured out for many. for the forgiveness of sins. Those words established a memorial that would echo through the ages. A new reality of sacrifice, redemption, and eternal communion. The scarcity of time, the imminence of events, made every gesture, every teaching more valuable and laden with meaning. He knew this would be his last meal with his friends, and used every moment to engrave eternal truths in their souls, a legacy no earthly power could erase or corrupt. Judas's betrayal was not a surprise to him, but a deep pain, consummation of a plan beyond human comprehension, part of a greater divine purpose. Despite the approaching darkness and imminent pain, hope remained anchored in the promise of a kingdom that would have no end, a testament to his unwavering faith and sacrificial love. The storytelling of the Last Supper is an invitation to deep reflection, a moment of revelation that echoes through the centuries, revealing the depth of divine love and human fragility. A story of love and betrayal, of promise and sacrifice, that forces us to confront our own choices and the urgency of living a life of true purpose and unconditional loyalty. After supper, the shadow of darkness followed them to Gethsemane, an olive grove whose name means oil press, where agony reached its peak. Crushing him under the weight of the world's sin, he withdrew to pray, taking Peter, James, and John with him, the closest witnesses to his unspeakable anguish, a moment of divine and human fragility, of intense spiritual combat. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he confessed, exposing the depth of his inner suffering, an anguish so intense that his sweat became like drops of blood. The loneliness was overwhelming, the certainty of what was coming imminent. The battle between the human will to avoid pain and the divine to fulfill purpose fought there, a silent cry that tore through the heavens. 3 times he returned to find the disciples, and 3 times they were asleep, overcome by weariness and sorrow. That heavy sleep was a symbol of spiritual blindness, of the inability to comprehend the magnitude of the moment, and the urgency to remain vigilant in prayer, as he had asked. "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak," he lamented. The scene in Gethsemane is a testament to pure humanity, the internal struggle against the inevitable destiny of the cross. "Father, if it is possible, take this cup from me," he prayed, referring to the suffering and divine wrath he was about to endure, but always with the final surrender, "Yet not what I will, but what you will." A submission of divine authority to the Father's will. The scarcity of time for prayer, the abrupt interruption of his communion, all contributed to the sense of urgency and predestination. Betrayal was at the door, and the moment of action approached inexorably. The opportunity to reverse the course of events had ended. But the final hour presented itself in all its harshness and cruelty. Then Judas, one of the 12, appeared with a crowd. He led Roman soldiers and temple guards, armed with swords and clubs. Lit torches illuminated the darkness of the night, revealing the clear intention of arresting him under cover of darkness and secrecy. The kiss, the agreed-upon sign for identifying the master, an act of betrayal that became an eternal symbol of perfidy. The soldiers advanced, arresting him without hesitation, while the disciples, overcome by fear and confusion, fled. One of them, in an impulsive act of defense and desperation, drew his sword, cutting off the right ear of Malchus, the high priest's servant, in vain. Jesus rebuked him, healed the wound, showing compassion even there. Resistance was futile, destiny was sealed, prophecy was fulfilled. The story of Gethsemane forces us to confront betrayal, the agony of a man who knew what was coming and accepted it. A narrative of divine authority, human suffering, and profound loneliness. Culminating in his arrest, the beginning of the end of his earthly journey, the urgency of witnessing truth and sacrifice becomes palpable. Led to the house of the high priest Caiaphas, the trial began. A farce orchestrated under the darkness of night, in blatant violation of Jewish law. Gathered there were all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes, the members of the Sanhedrin, eager to pronounce their cruel sentence, a scene of injustice and pure malice, disguised as religious legality. False witnesses came forward in profusion, their stories confused and contradictory, trying to find a basis to condemn him to death. Accusations about destroying the temple and rebuilding it in 3 days were distorted, but even the lies couldn't align perfectly, revealing the fragility of their accusations, the absence of truth. In concrete evidence, a plot that fell apart under the scrutiny of any impartial observer. He, in contrast, remained silent before all accusations, an attitude of authority, dignity, and prophetic fulfillment, Isaiah 53:7, that enraged them. The high priest, impatient and frustrated with the lack of progress, asked directly, "Are you the Christ, the Son of the blessed God?" The answer was a significant "I am," an affirmation that sealed his destiny and provoked the leader's wrath. His clear affirmation of divinity was enough for the final verdict. Accusations of blasphemy, the death penalty demanded by the religious leaders. The urgency to condemn him before dawn was palpable. A hurried and illegal trial to avoid the wrath of the people. A fear that drove them to act under cover of night before daylight revealed the injustice. Meanwhile, Peter, following from a distance, tried to blend in with the crowd, sitting with the guards by the fire in the courtyard, seeking warmth and observing. A servant girl recognized him, posing the uncomfortable and accusatory question. "You also were with that Nazarene Jesus." The fear of scarcity of time, of consequences, and of life itself arose. 3 times, Peter vehemently denied knowing the Master, swearing and cursing to convince those who questioned him of his innocence. "I don't know this man you're talking about." The words sounded empty and desperate in the cold night air. And the crow of the rooster tore through the silence, a cruel and immediate reminder of the prophecy. The prophecy was fulfilled in its entirety. The pain of denial tore his heart. And Peter broke down in bitter tears, a deep and overwhelming remorse. Human fragility exposed in a moment of extreme pressure, fear prevailing over loyalty and the purest love, a lesson that echoes the urgency of faith, courage, and spiritual vigilance. The night trial and Peter's denial are powerful storytelling, revealing the complexity of human and divine nature. The authority of silence and truth against unjust fury and lies, loyalty broken under the pressure of fear, but the promise of restoration. Final moments that forever define a legacy of sacrifice, redemption, and hope.